Welcome to the Beauty and You podcast, a safe place created for all women to come relax, get inspired, and be constantly reminded that they have not lost the ability to be who they once were. Join us as we dive into the true meaning of rediscovery through inspiring guests and topics such as healing, self-love, and creating a positive mindset. So sit back, relax, and get comfortable as we dive into this week's episode. Here's your host, Mack.
Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of the Beauty in You podcast. I'm super excited because we're heading to New York, you guys. I cannot wait for you to hear this remarkable story, and I know for sure your life is definitely going to be inspired and transformed once you hear from our guest. Our guest is a New York City public school teacher with over 20 years experience. She's a strong advocate for social emotional learning in all classrooms. She's dedicated to fostering confidence and building strong self-esteem in her students. She's committed to changing the narrative around body image for the youngest generation and future generations. Her mission has become her purpose and passion. As the author of Embrace Your Features, she strives to embody the change she wishes to see in the world and invites others to join her in making a collective impact. Welcome to the Beauty in You podcast, Christina Testut. How are you, Mama?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
I am so happy you're here, and I just can't wait for you to tell your story. Everything that you're doing is so impactful, and it's definitely making an impact on our young minds.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
So if you don't mind getting us started, as the title being The Beauty in You, just start us off with your rediscovery journey.
Sure. So from as early as I can remember, as a young child, I always kind of felt less than and that there was something like wrong with me. I could remember every comment that seemed to be that my appearance and my body was always a topic of conversation from family members, peers in school, as early as elementary school, doctors, didn't matter who it was. I began to realize that my body and the way that I looked was not acceptable. And I became ashamed of myself and what I looked like at a very young age. And I went on as any diet, all the diets, you could think of, my whole entire life to try to change myself physically. And, I wound up having a family, had children, and one day I just decided that what was going to be what I needed was to once and for all change my physical appearance, and be that hero and role model that my children could look up to. I thought that's what I needed to do. And I did. And I became very good at losing weight and shrinking. And I got a lot of attention for it. I was put in a weight loss commercial. I was put in ads for a weight loss company, and all this positive feedback and attention was all on me. And I felt accepted finally. I felt like, wow, this is who I was meant to be. Not knowing at that moment that that wasn't true, but I finally felt enough. And I did that for 5 years, became this weight loss success story and made it my identity. And around 2020, I started to feel a shift. I no longer felt like that the weight loss community I was in was my safe space. I started to hear and see things my then preteen daughter, now she's almost 17, but at that time she was just turning to be a teenager. I heard things that she was saying about herself that was negative, and I'm a teacher. I saw and heard it all in my school. And in 2020, it was the Zoom and Google Meet started to be the thing, right? And I was on those meetings a lot for work or, watching my children and doing their schoolwork. And every time somebody came on the screen, they apologized for what they looked like. I'm so sorry that I have no makeup on. I'm so sorry that my hair is not dyed, that, you know, my grays are showing. Oh, I'm so sorry my eyebrows are not done. You know, it was every negative thing about themselves, apologizing for it. And I felt I felt bad. I felt bad for them, and I felt bad for myself, and I felt bad for my children hearing this. And my children started to say to me, like, why does my teacher keep on apologizing for what she looks like to all of us, or telling us not to look at her because she's scary looking right now? Like, and they started to feel it too. And I thought, you know, we call these things that are normal parts of us flaws, and they're really not. They're just normal features that make us who we are.
Yeah.
And I started to, the teacher in me, the educator in me, I started to go like into the dictionary and dissect flaw and feature. Like, what are we calling ourselves when we say flaws? Like defects, imperfections, something that mars you. Those are the synonyms for flaw. But then when you look at feature, it's characteristic, attribute, trait. Those are what our facial features, our hair, our body, those are what those things are, just features of us. And, you know, I started out on Instagram as this weight loss account. And I decided to put out this post called Embrace Your Features. And I put the whole dissection and comparison of flaw versus features. And it didn't go anywhere. You know, my audience really wasn't feeling it. But I tried to live it and breathe it. And I kept posting about it. And it wasn't until that was 2020. So it wasn't until like 2022 where I said, you know what? I want to make an impact with my students, with my own children. How can I make the impact I want? Because it's enough, you know, it's not enough to me just to say the words. Like I want somebody to be able to read it and see it over and over again, you know, have it to be their reminder when I'm not near them, when I'm not next to them. And I said, you know what, I'm going to try to write a book. So I started to pursue like the possibilities and reached out to different people and publishing companies. And I had this Instagram post as my inspiration, and then it became my manuscript. And then I made it into my book, Embrace Your Features. And so it came out last year, April 2023. And now I know that this is my legacy for my children, not, oh, mommy was a weight loss success story. You know, I don't want to be called an inspiration anymore because I shrank, because I was good at shrinking myself, because I became smaller. I want to be remembered. I want my legacy to my children to be like, mommy, you know, wanted us all to feel accepted and love ourselves and be ourselves unapologetically, no matter what we look like. So yeah, now that's what has become my drive, my passion, and my purpose. I feel like this book is so special, and I feel like the message is so important out there. Whenever I look on social media, and our children are on social media so much more now than ever, and they're getting the opposite messages. They're getting the messages that they need to change themselves, and bullying about appearances is still going on in school. And I want to try to help change the way we see ourselves, the way our children and future generations see ourselves, because I was that child. I was that child that needed something like this when I was young.
Me too. I needed that. I needed that. I remember appearances being, and it still is a big deal now, but I just remember being that middle school child, and that even in elementary, seriously, going through worrying about what I look like, you know, being of darker skin, growing up in the South and hearing things like, you know, you're beautiful for a dark skinned girl. Like, what does that mean? Like, why do they always say that part? Like, what
Yeah.
is that? You know, what does that mean? How does that compare? And not liking my hair and wanting my texture to be different, you know? So it does start at such a young age, and it does leave an imprint on yourself, and it carries you through your adulthood.
Yeah,
Like
100%.
seriously. And so it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work when we go back and we are on our rediscovery journeys and we tackle that. I want to congratulate you on just even, you thought you achieved what you wanted. And when you got to that level of success, you realize this is not really what I want. I'm not comfortable. And instead of just staying there because you thought you were receiving something that you've been working toward, you decided to follow your heart and to listen
Yeah.
to the way you felt
Yeah.
and be the inspiration that you want to be.
Yeah.
That's not easy to do,
No.
especially with a community that is like, what the heck are you doing? Why are you posting this? Like, this
Yes.
is not even what we're doing. Like,
Exactly.
what are you talking about right now? And that's hard.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
really,
I
really
felt
hard.
alone. I felt alone and like I was the like quote unquote weird one. There was
Yeah.
something wrong with me because everybody around me was doing the opposite and saying the opposite. And not just on social media, but in my workplace, in, when you watch TV, on commercials, on the radio. And I thought it was about a year, I tried to do it by myself. The unlearning, relearning. And I thought I was doing okay until I realized that I really wasn't. And then I had to seek help. I had to seek a therapist that understood, what I was going through. And, I'm to this day, 2, 3 years later, I'm still with that, therapist helping me navigate this new world that I'm trying to live in because, you know, bad body image days still come. I'm so used to seeing a before and after image in my head, and now I'm closer to that before picture than I am to the after picture that everybody congratulated and everybody said how, amazing and inspiring I am because I didn't look like that before picture anymore. And so tackling the emotions of, oh my God, now I look like that before picture again. And nobody thought that was quote unquote good or valuable or worthy. And now I need to tell myself I am. I am. It doesn't matter what I look like. I'm still valuable and worthy. And body size doesn't change that, but the messages I still see loud and clear are the opposite. So it is very difficult. And
Mhm.
you sometimes need support.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Support all the way. Therapy, I think it's so important. I think everybody listening, like you need a therapist. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so hard, it was hard for myself too to seek therapy just because the stigma of therapy, right? That's a whole
Yeah.
other conversation. It's like,
Yeah.
what can we do, right? Oh my God.
Yeah. I
Like,
know.
every time we do something,
I
someone has
know.
something to say. But I think therapy is important, and it's important to add that to your tool bag.
Yes.
Talk about the tool
100%.
bag a lot, on these journeys, on our rediscovery journeys, on our self-discovery and everything that we're doing. It's just we're adding tools to that. And we're going to have days that are not the best. We're going to have
Yeah.
moments where we're like, oh my God, I'm so exhausted from doing this. But that's the important of having the
Right.
resources and the support around you because you can just always reach back or, see your therapist or
Yes.
do all those things to get you where you're going. It's a
Yeah.
long process. No journey is perfect, and it's a lot
Yeah.
of work. You have to be dedicated to it.
Yeah.
And so, seeking a therapist, I will say yes, like I said before, it is so important to
Yes.
just have that and begin to create that community. The
Hmm.
world we live in is so hard,
Yeah.
especially when we start talking about the way we look.
Hmm.
Looks define, unfortunately, the way society is set up to
Yeah.
define everything, right? Like the
Hmm.
way you look, the way you carry yourself, your
Hmm.
weight, you can be too skinny and people
Hmm.
got something to say.
Yeah. It's
And then
true.
if you gain more weight, then people have something to say. So
Hmm.
again, it's like, well, where do I fit in or how
Right.
how do I fit with this? My issue with weight loss is what I hate about it is like for me, like I am a lot thick. I'm thicker now than I ever been. I was always very
Yeah.
small. I ran in high school and I ran track in college. And so I was really small, but that was like athletic small.
Yeah.
But then when I got sick, like depression and anxiety a different kind of small. That's when you're
Yeah.
just like, girl, like
Yeah.
there's some mental things happening, right? So now that I'm healthy, this is health. This is great. I love my size because this is healthy Quita. This is not
Right.
depression Quita or anxiety.
Right.
But then you have people who are like, girl, you know, you're putting on weight or you're getting thicker. And it bothers me because I'm like,
Mhm.
that where you saw me before, I wasn't even healthy.
Right.
Like I was sick.
Right.
I was struggling. I was going through so much in my life at that time. So people really need to be careful when they start defining like what's good weight.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. Right. And in the same way for me, nobody knew how much I was struggling mentally when I
Mhm.
was losing all that weight, especially towards the end when I was becoming so obsessed because I couldn't stay the weight that I wanted to stay. You know, I was starting to become obsessed and tears being shed over what I look like and, you know, maybe eating out one night. And like, I just became so obsessed and had disordered eating. And I didn't find out until I went to therapy that I was diagnosed then for an eating disorder. And I didn't even know that. And I was shocked because that's even another story. There's so much stigma around eating disorders and misinformation. The misinformation around eating disorders is unbelievable. And I was one of those people that had no idea that what I was doing was disordered eating because everybody around me was doing the same thing, saying the same thing. And people don't realize that they were complimenting me for what I look like, which was fueling my fire to keep going because I'm getting all these compliments.
Mhm.
And they didn't know that I was struggling at the time, with all of it. So I agree. Like I don't think people should comment on people's bodies no matter what. If they look thinner and they think they're giving them a compliment, oh, did you lose weight? They could be sick like cancer. They could be,
Right.
sick with depression, like you mentioned, or they could have an eating disorder. And you don't know that. And you're complimenting them that they look better just because they're smaller. So
Mhm.
for me, gaining weight was needed in order to recover and heal. And, I'll never forget, I had a parent of a past student come up to me right as I was starting therapy. I was only into therapy a couple of months. I just found out what I was struggling with was an eating disorder. And the parent was of a child that I had a few years ago. And she saw me outside and she ran up to me and I went to hug her and she pushed back and she looked me up and down and she said, "Oh my God, what happened to you? You got so fat."
Oh my
And
God.
that was the face I made, what you just did, mouth open, mortified. And I didn't know what to say. And I was just like, "Oh, I'm fine." And I tried to change the subject, ask about her child, my former student. And tears started to well up in my eyes. And she was like, "Did I offend you? I just am worried about you. You're so big now." And like, just got worse. And I had to leave the situation.
Yeah.
Um, Now, if somebody was to ask me what happened to you, you got so fat, I don't take it as personally because I now see that fat is not a bad word. That fat is not a bad thing. That the world makes fat bad, And for me, I needed to gain weight and become fat according to the eyes of other people, um, to heal and recover and just be better, mentally, and emotionally. But yeah, that's even another story, the way that we perceive the word fat and how that's like the best insult anybody can give all the time when they're mad at somebody, or like talk about, how big they are. That's a whole nother thing that I'm trying to change in the walls of my classroom because you hear it in classrooms with kids as young as 5 years old, thinking they're going to make fun of somebody by calling them fat. There's so much this world needs to change with, but one thing at a time.
Absolutely. One thing at a
Yeah.
time. We're trying our best. We're trying to make a change for sure. I do want to talk about your classroom. What ways are you implementing and planting that seed of positive body image with your students?
Yeah. So I love to collect now all the different body image children books that I can find. I'm so proud that I added my own to the collection, but there's so
Yay.
many other great children body image books out there. There's not a lot, but they're up and coming now. There's more and more. And so I like to read those and have a conversation with my students about, their how they feel about themselves, and find, how they can embrace their features. And we have a lot of discussions about that. I do positive affirmations every single day, and our positive affirmations are built as a class. So in the beginning of the year, I help them out and I do the basics. I am brave, I am smart, I am strong. But then as the year goes on, once I start reading these different books to them and they get the messages from the books, they help me add more affirmations based on the books we read. So of course, when I read Embrace Your Features to them, they were like, let's add, I can embrace my features. And we read this great book called My Body is Bodies Are Cool. And they decided the affirmation they wanted to be was, my body is cool and awesome. And so we say that every morning. And just all the affirmations we could think of that come from their mouths, and we just repeat them every single morning. They each get a turn to stand up, read off of the slides, and the kids repeat after them. And it's part of our daily routine and daily practice. I have a little affirmation mirror as well, where I invite them in the beginning of the year, I show them how to go up to it and what kinds of things we can say to it. And in the beginning of the year, I have them go up, make a line and do it. But then as the year goes on, the invitation is, you go there whenever you need to go there. If you need to go there, you go up to the mirror and say your affirmations. And, just every time I see something or hear something, call it out and have a conversation. So most recently, kindergarten, you could see how it's already in their minds about the word fat. So kindergarten, when they hear the word fat, when we're just decoding it in phonics, the word is just up on the screen and we're going fat. All of a sudden, all the giggles happen. They don't giggle when they hear the word hat. They don't giggle when they hear any other word, but they hear the word fat just in phonics and they start giggling. And so when I saw this happening a few times, I was like, let's have a conversation. Yeah. Like, why is it that every time we hear that word, we laugh and giggle? And we talked about it. They don't really know what to say at 5, but I tried to give them the message that, it's not a funny word. We see in the movies people, making the fat character always the funny character, or the villain, or things like that. But it's not a funny word. We don't have to laugh every time. And just recently, one of my little 5-year-olds, somebody laughed when they heard the word, and she raised her hand and she said, fat is not bad, silly, or funny. That is just a size word. And I was just like, wow, she got the message. So if I can get one child to get that message and then share it with whoever, their family members, their first graders next year. So yeah, it's just a lot of, conversation, talking about it, pointing things out in books, because there are unfortunately a lot of children's books that have anti-fat language. And I just make it my business to say something, let's discuss this. Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's important as an educator that you're doing that. We have to start as young as 5, like that. I just wish, we had that. I remember my second grade teacher. You do remember your teachers too, you're definitely going to make an impact on them. Like my kindergarten teacher, because I still remember my second grade teacher. But just being able to plant those seeds, like you said, when your student was like, hey, like, this is not the message that we learned, and they actually said something, I think it's so important. And I often see that the sooner we plant the seed, even when you think your kids, your students, or kids, like at home kids, aren't listening, they're listening. Yeah. And so just think about, like you said, you're planting this lesson in your kindergartners, they're going first graders and second graders and and they're going to continue to pass this message on. Like I remember when my kindergarten teacher taught me the importance of positive, body image, and to love myself, these positive affirmations. Like I didn't learn about positive affirmations till I was an adult.
Yeah, same with me.
And it's like they were always there. It's just that's not really what my family did. Like, no one's teaching me
Right.
about positive mindset and looking in the mirror and saying I love myself and I'm accepting who I am. And so I made it a point to instill that in my kids, positive
Mm-hmm.
affirmations. They have them
Yep.
in their room. My daughter
Yep.
has 5 in her, when she wakes up, like right across from her bed, they're there. And
Yep.
my son has them the same thing. His are more for basketball, but they're still positive affirmations. And they're right there when he wakes up,
Yeah.
because I just feel it's so important to plant those seeds in them. And my daughter will check me if I'm not, if
Yeah.
I'm having an off day. She's like,
Yeah.
you're positive affirmations today. You
Yep.
know, and my son too, there's the importance of knowing them and talking about your journey. He'll be like, Mom, this is my journey. And I'm,
Yeah.
you know, I'm like, oh, okay, so y'all are listening to me,
Mm-hmm.
listening.
Yeah.
So I think it's important. I get excited when I hear this, because like I said, you're such an inspiration and you are impacting so many people at a time, whether you think you are or not. Like, you're definitely leaving a lasting impression on them, whether you're in the room or not. And
Yeah.
just by planting the seed for your students and having your book, and like, you're definitely changing the world one step at a time, which I believe that's our mission. Like, we're trying, we're trying.
Fine. Yep. I hope so.
You are. There's no hope. You're doing it.
Thanks.
You're doing it for sure. I want to talk about the importance of self-love and self-acceptance. What are some things that you did to begin to implement self-love and acceptance in your life? And in what ways have you carried that over to your kids, even students' lives?
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, I think affirmations were a big one for me. I have certain mantra bracelets that I wear on my wrists that have certain affirmations that I need, that I know that I need daily. Again, therapy again helped me practicing shutting down the negative voice in my head,
Mhm.
and you know, saying like I I'm ugly, or I don't, this doesn't look good on me. I can't go out looking like this. I go back at that thought and say, that's not your thought. That's a thought that you learned from the world, that you inherited. You inherited that thought without your permission, but that's not your thought, and you don't have to listen to it. So it's like shutting that down and realizing that it's not my thought. In the past, I would believe it. Like I thought it, so I believe it. It must be true, you know? But now I'm able to talk to myself, that positive voice that I'm trying to have instilled in my children and my students. I'm doing the same thing for myself. I feel like I'm like reparenting myself as I'm teaching my students and my children. So all the things that I do for them, it's because I do it and I need it for myself. And just asking for help when I need it, I think is so important to self-love, because self is in there. It's all about yourself, but you do need help sometimes. You do need the support. And so when I'm not feeling like I'm doing so well, I reach out to important people in my life, like the therapist, like my husband, to try to talk it out. Like a lot of talking it out. I love to write, journal. I like to write down how I'm feeling. That helps as well. But I have to like work hard at negating all the things that I think to make it more positive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fighting through the negative noise.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
And it can be exhausting too, but we have to definitely be intentional. I talk a lot about being intentional about what you feed your brain,
Yeah.
and being able to recognize when it doesn't fit, and even being intentional about who you let into your um sacred circle, I guess,
Yes.
um and who you got to push out. Because some people
Yeah.
you have in that you think should really maybe be supportive of you or on your journey, and then you come to find out like they're not, which can be
Yeah.
hard to accept. But just understanding
Yeah.
like, y'all gotta go. You can't be here because you're no longer beneficial to myself as I'm on my self-acceptance,
Yeah.
self-love, self-healing journey. And if you're not a benefit to me, I can't just keep you around because I'm afraid to hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
So,
Boundaries.
oh yeah,
Definitely.
boundaries,
Yeah.
so important. So
hmm
important. And it's like the hardest thing to establish.
hmm As a people pleaser for myself, that's very hard. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. So
Mhm.
I had to learn throughout this that my feelings are what's most important, and
Mhm.
trusting myself is more important. So yeah, that was another thing that I had to relearn or learn in the first place, because I always did for others and walked on eggshells for others to make sure they felt good and accepted, but I wasn't doing it for myself, and I think you're right. Like, I had to lose a lot of people who I thought were I was, friends with or cool with.
Yep. And it's like,
Yeah.
sorry guys, it is what it is. I've lost a lot of people along the way too.
Mhm.
So it is
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it doesn't hurt, but it's very much so necessary
hmm
and something that we just have to do sometimes.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to a young woman who is struggling with her body and may even be suffering from an eating disorder? What advice would you give her?
The number one first thing I would say is that to seek help, to seek out a professional to speak to, because even if you don't, it's still great to like speak to somebody about how you're feeling, to deal with your emotions. That's my number one first, thing that I would say, because I can say to them my story, but I don't know if they're ready to listen, right? Like,
Yeah.
sometimes people are just not ready to hear it. I know if somebody told me my story when I was in the thick of diet culture, I would be like, well, that's you. That's not me. Like,
Mhm.
and I've had that. I've had that several times already. And I've had, people say, thank you for sharing your story. I think it's made me think that I should probably seek out somebody to talk to.
Mhm.
And, that to me is the biggest compliment, because I am so glad they're going to get help for whatever it is that they're, struggling with. But so I don't force opinions on anybody, because I think that you have to be ready. And I don't know if you're ready yet to accept the fact. So I think the best thing is to seek out professional help and tell them how you're feeling. Of course, validating their feelings, I would do, and making them know they're not alone
Mhm.
as well, because I suffered alone. I tried to do it alone, didn't even tell my own family how much I was struggling, and it's not fun. It's not fun to feel like you're alone, and so I would definitely validate that person's feeling, tell them that I'm here for them if they need anything and they're not alone, and offer them maybe my therapist's number to talk to. And if they don't want that therapist, have offer to help them find one for themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Therapy, guys. Like
Yeah.
through all of this, through everything that we've spoke about today, mental health is big, you guys. And I just think that therapy is it's just so important.
Yeah.
You just never know what people are going through. And so just even having that person, whether you're ready to open up or not, just having a therapist there to just listen
Yeah.
to you sometimes until
Yeah.
you are ready, I think is so important to have. And
hmm
so I just really want to push the importance learning who you are, loving who you are, and just not being afraid to ask for help and seek
hmm
that professional.
Yes.
Like, I know I struggled with it in the beginning just because it's like I said before, stigma with talking to someone and like, oh my God, you're in therapy, you must be crazy, which we don't say to people,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's what I was afraid of. And then I
Yeah.
realized like I probably should have been here a lot sooner
Yeah. It's
instead of
really eye
trying.
opening. It like
Yeah.
really is eye opening, makes you realize why you do the things you do and why
Hmm.
you feel the way you feel. And I felt the same. Like, I used to whisper the word, like, therapy, like it was a bad word or
Like, oh my
something. And I thought you had to hit rock bottom as well to go to
God.
therapy.
Mhm.
like, but you don't. Like, you can start for any reason, like you said, just for somebody to listen to you and hash out feelings, you know?
Absolutely. Like, so
Yeah.
y'all seek therapy. Don't be ashamed. Your
Yeah.
story is beautiful. Your rediscovery journey is beautiful. It's only tailored to you. You are the author. So come on, you guys. I just want to
Yeah.
encourage you to, get the help should you need it. Just
Yeah.
get the help. Can you tell the audience where they can find your book?
Yeah. So my book is available online and where most books are sold, like Amazon, barnesandnoble.com. You can go to my website, www.embraceyourfeatures.com, and learn more about me and my book and different events that I do. And there's a link there that brings you straight to where you can buy the book as well.
Yay.
Mhm.
And also, where can the audience find you on social media?
So I have I'm on Instagram, Christina underscore runs the world. And on TikTok, I'm Embrace Your Features.
Yes.
Mhm.
I want to thank you so much for being a part of my journey and being a guest on the Beauty in You podcast. I'm just thankful that you trusted me to share your story, and I am forever grateful for that.
Oh, you're very welcome. I am thankful to you for allowing me to share my story and to share the message of my book. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, you guys, I'll make sure to link everything in the show notes so you can grab your copy and thus be a part of Christina's journey and a part of her world. I want to thank you for tuning in today. Until next time.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the Beauty in You podcast. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Visit us at thechiquitamack.com or join us on Instagram at thechiquitamack for your daily motivation and inspiration. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Until next time.